Can you see it?
It's starting to come up. We've got it.
Can you hear it?
Anytime you're lifting a load with a jib, there's three weight capacities to consider. The jib capacity, the working load limit of the winch line, and the boom angle capacity. These are all independently rated, so it takes a responsible user to check all three to see if it's a load that can safely be lifted. So here I'm set up to lift this transformer. I looked at the nameplate, so I know it weighs 280 pounds. Now I have to make sure I can pick it up safely. This Alltech truck has a jib capacity placard on the top side of the jib. Here I can find the max weight that can be lifted at different extensions. To install this transformer, I know I'll need to extend it about 2.5 feet, which puts me at a limit of 1,000 pounds. This winch line has a working load limit of 2,500 pounds, so I know I'm safe here. Let's take a look at the boom angle indicator. Keep in mind, as the boom angle changes, the jib capacity will change as well. NLC recommends that you do a pre-run with the bucket before lifting your load. I did this earlier and found that my weakest angle was at -30 degrees. And when you factor in the 2.5-foot extension, that puts us at 495 pounds. So my weakest link is the boom. Keep in mind that these numbers can vary greatly depending on the truck you're using. And to comply with OSHA, you have to always make sure you're working within your load limits. But let's say I need to use a jib to lift up a wire. It gets a little more tricky because obviously conductors don't have nameplates with the weight written on them. But there's a couple things you can do to figure it out. If you're using a link stick, NLC recommends having a small dynamometer in each truck. This is the best way to monitor the weight you're lifting and make sure you never cross your limits. If you don't have access to a dynamometer, or if you're using a wire holder, you can contact the engineering department to get the weight or do some simple calculations. If you're lifting the line at this point, get the span length on each side of the pole. So this one's 350 feet and this one's 300 feet. Now I'm going to add these together and divide by 2, and I get 325 feet. Next, find the weight per foot of the conductor you're working with. You can ask the manufacturer or engineering department if this number is not on the work order. This one is 1.234 pounds per foot. Just multiply these together, and that's the weight that we lifted. Keep in mind though, this only factors in the weight as you lift it straight up. Only lift it as high as you need to, because the weight can double as you increase tension. These numbers are only for freely suspended loads, so you should never use a jib to pull poles or to drag loads across the ground. These limits were put in place for your safety, so take them seriously and never lift a load without knowing its weight.
Okay, can you start that again? And I'll tell you when to pause it. Good video.
Anytime you're lifting a load with a jib, there's three weight capacities to consider. The jib capacity.
You can pause it there. Okay, so there's plenty. Professor V, I mean, in your organization, how many bucket trucks were just true bucket trucks and how many had jibs?
Actually, they went to all bucket trucks and jibs.
Okay.
Everything.
It can be a little bit cumbersome operating a bucket truck with a jib on it, especially if you have to go through tight areas or you have to get close to a location. What they're not including here, and you can partially see it right there, is the bucket is what they call articulating. Does everybody know what articulating means?
It moves around in a bunch of different ways.
Yeah, it pivots. It pivots back and forth. So you can move the bucket around also while you have the jib on there too. And the thing we kind of like about these buckets that you have showing right here, as far as doing a bucket rescue, you can take this bucket and bring it all the way down to the ground, tilt the bucket down, and just pull the person out. Whereas other buckets, you have to use ropes. All right, carry on with the video.
Load limit of the winch line and the boom angle capacity. These are all independently rated, so it takes a responsible user to check all three to see if it's a load that can safely be lifted. So here I'm set up to lift this transformer. I looked at the nameplate, so I know it weighs 280 pounds. Now I have to make sure I can pick it up safely. This Alltech truck has a jib capacity placard on the top side of the jib. Here I can find the max weight that can be lifted at different extensions.
All right, pause it there.
To install
All right, what he's taking and telling you about it, there's somebody out there that's, okay, that helps out. What he's talking about here is when he's got that orange jib extended, 0 to 1 feet, 1.1, and on and on and on, it's about the weight capacity. What he's also not including is jib angle. What the chart is showing right here, if I have the jib sticking out this far, this is how much weight it will hold at 90 degrees. All right, you can actually pick up more weight if you change your jib angle and go up in the air with it. So that will have your weight capacity go up as far as whatever you're picking up. Straight down, and it's just like holding out your arm and trying to hold it with weight. If you hold it straight out, it's going to be tough. You take that weight, put it straight over your head, you can hold that weight for a lot longer, okay? Because you have more strength. So does the jib of a boom. Go ahead.
this transformer, I know I'll need to extend it about 2.5 feet, which puts me at a limit of 1,000 pounds. This winch line has a working load limit of 2,500 pounds, so I know I'm safe here.
All right, so he's saying he's going to extend the orange part of that jib right there 2.5 feet. Pretty much, guys, that's where it's going to stay all the time, right, Professor V?
That's right.
Because you're going to be in the bucket, you're going to have to do the work as far as maneuvering the transformer onto the bolts. You put that thing 5 feet away off the jib, you'll never be able to reach it.
That's right.
You're going to have somebody else climb the pole to be able to reach the end of the jib where you need to stick it out to. So we normally took it no more than 3 feet out as far as the jib was concerned. Go ahead and carry on.
Here, let's take a look at the boom angle indicator. Keep in mind, as the boom angle changes, the jib capacity will change as well. NLC recommends that you do a pre-run with the bucket before lifting your load. I did this earlier and found that my weakest angle was at -30 degrees. And when you factor in the 2.5-foot extension, that puts us at 495 pounds.
Okay, pause it.
So my weakest link.
All right, so there's other factors here. You got the jib capacity and the angle of the jib, and then you get the boom capacity. How much will the boom pick up? Now, Professor V, you can jump in on this one too. If you overload the boom's automatically going to stop.
Right.
Okay, you're going to be going up in the air, straight down on the ground like this. You're going to have great lifting capacity.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as you start going up with the upper boom and get further away from the truck, the weaker it gets. And if you get to a point where the boom measures too much weight at the angle you're at, the boom will stop, and it will be sudden. Is it sudden with yours, Professor V?
That's correct.
Yeah, it'll flop you around a little bit and jerk you back and forth. How do you remedy the situation?
Lift at different angles.
Yeah, you could do it a lift at different angles. If you're at a pole location and you're trying to lift that transformer up and you're going up to that pole, you know it just won't work. From that point on, I mean, eventually I'm going to have to get that upper boom extended and lower boom up to get far enough to the pole. If it can't be done from a lift from the ground, it won't be done at all. It just won't reach. All right, so you're stuck up in the air and the boom won't operate anymore. How do you get back down?
You got to do the override on the ground.
No.
Mm-hmm.
The
Well,
process
your
of the
weight
boom
first,
stopping
but
is
then-
the process of the boom stopping is so the boom won't break and throw you out.
Yeah, get rid of the weight.
Get there, excellent. Okay, the winch still works on the winch line. So lower the transformer to the ground, and once you've got that weight off the end of the boom, then you can maneuver back. Go ahead with the video.
Link is the boom. Keep in mind that these numbers can vary greatly depending on the truck you're using. And to comply with OSHA, you have to always make sure you're working within your load limits. But let's say I need to use a jib to lift up a wire. It gets a little more tricky because obviously conductors don't have nameplates with the weight written on them. But there's a couple things you can do to figure it out. If you're using a link stick, NLC recommends having a small dynamometer in each truck.
Okay, pause.
This is the best way to monitor the weight you're lifting.
All right, Professor V, did you use this process?
We did not use that dynamometer. We always used. We ended up having to use the link stick to lift up conductors with.
All right, we use the link stick, which is just essentially what you saw, a fiberglass stick to link to bring up conductors.
Yep.
Agree with that 100%. We did not use the dynamometer. Guys, I just, to go into just the general practices out there, and you're going to be the judge of this. When you start lifting up conductor, you're going to know the truck that you're working in. All right. And the winch at this time, if you're picking up something, the winch is going to stop also.
Right.
Now, don't get to that point. You can tell when that rope gets tight. You can tell when things start to sing a little bit that you are getting in a tight situation. You may, in some cases, lift up with the winch and lock the boom out and not even know it. Does that make sense?
Makes sense.
You're sitting in one place and you're lifting up a conductor, and that conductor weight is adding up, adding up, adding up. And it automatically locks the boom out, but you're not operating the boom, you're operating the winch. So that will let you know, hey, I've got too much weight on a conductor pickup. I need to slack off a little bit, then I'm able to maneuver by boom. All right, we did not use the dynamometer also. Carry on.
And make sure you never cross your limits. If you don't have access to a dynamometer, or if you're using a wire holder, you can contact the engineering department, get the weight, or do some simple calculations.
Okay, you can stop it there.
If you're lifting the line at this point,
You
get
can
the
unshare.
span length.
All right, thank you. Good video. Good video, guys. I'll be 100% to it. You know, there are, back in the younger years, you can make some modifications to a truck and you can override certain safety measures out there and be able to lift things more than was supposed to be lifted and get places more than you're allowed to. Do not do that, guys. Do not override the safety features of a truck, line truck, set poles with, or a bucket truck either. They're there for a reason. I know it can get intense, especially during a restoration situation where you want to get something done and finished and leave. And you say, I'm just going to bypass, I'm going to override the boom capacity, you know, just for these 5 minutes so I get the transformer hung. Don't do it. And you will think Professor V has probably been in this situation, I'm sure. Oh, heck, man, this thing ought to pick this up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, man, you know, I only got a foot to go. I'm just going to buy it. Don't do it. Safety features are on that truck for a reason.
Right.
Now, we did get some bucket trucks in that had the jib on it and the winch line on it that actually showed you the weight on the boom. Had a meter on it.
Mm.
So you didn't need that dynamometer. Any questions there, guys? I like the relation. I like the video and I like the relation. You're going to have to watch these things when you get on a line crew, not only in the lifting part with a jib, but a line truck boom. Some of you, a mini excavator, how much it can pick up. What's the backyard piece of equipment?
Mm-hmm.
Mini derrick. All of these have charts, graphs, and weightlifting capacities to them. Most of them have the safety features on it, but do realize sometimes safety features don't work all the time. So be advised, be aware of what you're trying to pick up.
Yeah.
Any other thing you'd like to add, Professor V?
I'm good.
Okay. All right, what time are we holding?
9:33.
It's 9:33 already. Let's take 10. Take
Okay.
10 and we'll get started on the stuff for today. Okay, gentlemen, we're going to talk this morning. I'm going to have a video for it, and this will be what the quiz is on today. And it's about grounding an overhead line. So in the process of grounding an overhead line, we've discussed this a little bit before. What must I have in my section of line before I ground it? And we talked about having open switches, correct? So I've put a drawing up here, and I've got these black ones are poles. Then I've got an open switch by the O symbol going right here. Then I have another line section of poles, and I have another right here at the other end. What is the zone of where I can work? Left, middle, or right? What zone can I work in?
Middle.
Middle. All right, remember this. This is a hard rule for all utilities. I have to have two visual open points. Okay, 2 visual open points before I ground my line. And there's actually another step prior to even to that before I start grounding my section of line right here. So can somebody, let's see, when a circuit breaker in a substation opens, can you see a visual open point?
To a certain extent, you can.
So you see an air gap inside a metal box
Right.
that's open, correct?
Yes.
All right. How about let's try a circuit breaker in your house. When a circuit breaker trips in your house, can you see a visual open point?
Yes.
No.
No. Right? You
In
cannot
the
see
wall.
you cannot see air in between where it's energized. We'll say the left is energized here, and the right, which is de-energized, because it's open, right? Gentlemen, visual open point is defined as air, an air gap, or an open point that you can visually see where the connection is broken. Inside a breaker in a substation, you can't see that. It's encased, okay? Inside a switch gear, that's for underground. You can't see that open point until you see an air gap in between. So even though the breaker is open, and you can confirm in the middle, I don't have any voltage, and you can test with a tester, I don't have any voltage, you still cannot ground it or work on it until you see a visual. It's got to be a visual open point. Okay? So, first step in the process here, confirm 2 open points, which we've done in this drawing right here. Okay. Shrink that down, shrink that down. This notepad takes some notes for you. It'll be on the video, and we'll just come back and forth. All right, let's watch the video.
Techniques portrayed in this video comply with OSHA 1910.269N, and the equipment shown meets or exceeds ASTM standard F855.
So they're meeting OSHA standards. You have to use the proper equipment, and we'll get into that when we get into the video, for the use of grounding. Now, of course, any good lineman can rig something up with some copper wire and some hot line clamps and all that good stuff to do the same procedure. That does not follow the ASTM or the OSHA standards. So you have to use the proper equipment to be able to do grounding.
Whenever preparing for any maintenance on a de-energized line, the first order of business is always temporary grounding. And that begins with laying out all the proper tools.
Okay, Professor V, how often did you make it look so pretty like this?
Never.
All right, guys, all this stuff's going to be on your trucks. It's going to be in bins. You don't have to lay it out perfectly like this. This is a demonstration video, but it is contained in your truck. You're going to have a stick bin where you see all the sticks up top.
Yep.
You're going to have a hand lines in a bin. And you're going to have this ground probe typically in the back of the truck. And all your grounds are going to be riding on the truck in a separate bin. You don't have to lay them out like this.
This is best accomplished by using a tarp to keep those loose pieces organized and clean. A tool rack for the long items keeps them high and dry too, as well as within easy reach. Now, starting from the ground up, first, the temporary ground rod screws into the soil, at least 15 feet from the pole.
Okay, so what's the next step.
Drill into
Ground
the,
rod 15 feet from the pole.
Install temporary ground rod.
15 feet from the pole.
15 feet from pole. Professor V, well, I've got you here.
Yep.
Y'all ever just use the pole ground?
Yes.
Okay. And it was okay.
Yes.
Yeah, for the purposes of the video and the quiz, we're going to use what they're going on by the directions right here. You can also use the ground that goes into the pole. We also, I mean, goes on the pole and then goes into the earth. We also use that. Now, in most locations, did you ground your poles with another ground rod, or did you just use a butt ground?
Most of the time it was just, if it was an older pole, it's just a butt ground.
Okay. Thank you very much. All right. So install temporary ground rod.
The spiral threads pull the 6-foot copper-clad rod into the earth for full-length.
Okay. So guys, and you get this thing going halfway down, you hit a little bit of hard ground or a root or something. Don't stop. Find another location. It's got to sink that far into the earth.
Yeah.
Use it fully.
Contact as a low-resistance ground. This now makes the bronze T-handle a good attachment point for connecting our first grounding set clamp. To make sure it's tight, a screwdriver may be used through the I-screw. Next, the groundman places safety cones around the ground rod as a warning barrier for other workers and the public. Next, he uncoils the grounding set attached to the rod and prepares to set up the clamp on the free end of the cable.
Okay, so we're going to go a step here. 3 period. Attach. Ground.
Ground clamp.
Lead to ground rod. And very important here, what else did he do? What else did he say?
Put the safety cones out.
Other than that. It's very important. He went by it very quick. Uncoil. Ground lead. Why do we uncoil the ground lead? All right, let's turn that around. What happens if we have high amperage go through a coil? We learned this before in transformers. It must be Monday.
Is it?
Anybody remember what happens if I put high amperage through a coil of wire?
It steps up.
Yeah, exactly. Fantastic. Great answer. It actually steps up the amperage and the voltage that's going through that coil, and it becomes more intense. Right? These leads are rated to a certain amperage and a certain voltage, just in case you do have a fault or something comes in contact with them that's energized. You don't want to make that more intense by coiling it up. So you have to stretch out the lead completely to make a straight line out of it.
But first, he checks an auto-ranging voltage indicator for operable condition with.
So this is a chance video, and this is a chance voltage tester. So I'm sure they're here and they're sitting advertising some of their stuff. What are some of the ones that we talked about before as far as testing our primary? What can we use?
The phasing sticks?
You can use phasing sticks to get a indication of voltage that's present on the line. They only go up to the hundreds. What else do we use? It was that little small black thing that we can put out the end of the stick.
Voltmeter.
No, we're not going to use a voltmeter on primary. That would blow us up.
Ammeter.
Ammeter is going to read amperage. No. We want to check for voltage.
Voltage regulator.
That regulates voltage. Anybody else? Remember we called it a tick tracer or a hot horn? Yeah. We actually don't even need to be up in the air to do this. We can do this on an extension stick. So we can use a voltage indicator, a hot horn or a tick tracer, to see if there is presence of voltage on their line. They're doing the same thing with this stick right here, except that's a very, very expensive stick. A chick tracer is going to run you right around 25 bucks. This is probably about what, Robbie, 300-400?
Probably so.
Yep.
A separate instrument tester, as must be done prior to every use. Then the lineman tests each phase to make sure the line has been cleared. Notice that the unit is mounted on the hot stick to maintain proper clearance as though the line were energized.
Okay, so step 3. Excuse me, step 4. Test for line voltage presence, P-R-E-S-E-N-C-E. Tick tracer or hot horn. We're just seeing if there's any voltage present.
Sent back down to the groundman, the auto-ranging voltage indicator is rechecked to confirm that it was operating properly. He again uses a separate tester to activate the auto-ranging voltage indicator. Notice how it sequences through a series of all display ranges, verifying its full functionality. Next, a tubular wire brush mounted on a universal stick thoroughly cleans all conductors. At the places grounding clamps will go later. This is absolutely essential. It removes oxides and contaminants so the grounding clamps can make good connections.
Step 5. What did you just do?
Clean up with the brush.
All right, yeah.
Conductor.
Clean conductor at clamp points. That's where he's going to install his clamps later on. Why do we do it?
Get all that oxidation off there.
Yeah, get the oxidation off, and you would be very surprised. Oxidation occurs while the wire is still on the reel. So even if you've got a brand new install of conductor, that conductor's been sitting out in the yard for a while, you've got oxidation on it, you must clean it off, even if it's brand new or 20, 30 years old. And that brush attachment is a steel brush that attaches to a stick. It ensures that you have a good connection between the clamp and the conductor. You don't want any resistance there, okay? Bad connections produce resistance. We do not want that. So we've got to clean the conductor.
Next, back down below the system neutral, a grounding cluster bar attaches to the pole with a chain binder.
Okay, step 6. I know he said it pretty quick. Install what?
Chain binder.
Install ground cluster mount. Okay, and you'll notice in this video, you'll see a little bit of difference here. How far away from the neutral is he with this ground cluster mount? Say about 2 feet.
Yeah.
When we go further on into the video here, you see a little bit of difference. They adjust that. So we'll show you that in just a moment. So install ground cluster mount. Exactly what it's saying. It's going to be a cluster of grounds once we attach all of them.
A wheel tightener cinches the chain to secure the cluster bar in the best position. Now the free end of the cable attached to the ground rod comes up and is clamped tight on the bar.
Okay, so next step. Install ground cable to cluster. That's the one coming from the ground rod up to the pole. And remember, it's uncoiled.
Then another complete grounding cable set attaches to the cluster bar. With a grip ball clamp stick, he connects the other clamp of that set on the system neutral.
Okay, so next step. Y'all can chime in whenever you're ready. install what? Neutral ground to cluster and neutral lead to neutral wire. NEU and install. You'll notice as we go through this process right here, we're starting, where do we
Now he'll finish.
started at the ground and we're slowly proceeding by conductor up. And you'll see this process that's going on the whole time. Now, did he install the neutral lead to the neutral first and then the cluster, or to the cluster first and then the neutral?
Cluster first.
Cluster first. All right, work, and I've told you this in construction, while we're out in construction class, work from the ground up on a build, which he's doing. He's installing something. Work from the ground up, and when you get ready to remove, work from the top back down. You use that in your construction techniques and your grounding techniques also. All right, so he's got it installed to the cluster bar, and he's got the other lead installed to the neutral.
Finish connecting the next set from where he had hung it on the neutral in the place he cleaned earlier by wire brushing. This grounding set now bridges from the neutral to an outside phase conductor, always.
Okay, so, and Professor V, help me out with this, and I've got a question for you in just a moment. So his next step was 9, install ground lead to neutral, NEUTRL, and place on outside phase. Now, the question I'll ask you, Professor V, why do we place it on an outside phase? Can I go to any of the, or all 3 phases?
You want to keep the phase closest to you grounded first.
Excellent. And well, I mean, it's pretty obvious, right?
Yeah.
I personally am closest to this phase.
Right.
So I personally want to ground it first.
Right.
If I need to get over to this further phase that's further away from them, I'm probably going to have to climb up a little bit more and be in closer proximity to this phase, and it's not grounded yet. So it's kind of, and we use the terminology, work your way in, then work your way out.
Right.
Did you call it anything different?
That's about what we call it, yeah.
Yep. Okay. Work your way in, work your way out.
Right.
He's clamping on the area cleaned by wire brushing.
A lot of stick over here. And goes to the same process we were talking about before. Does he install it on the center phase and then bring it back to the phase that's grounded? Or does he install it on the grounded phase, and is he in preparation to take it to the center phase?
Yes.
Preparation to take it to the center.
Preparation to take it to center. Always use what's already grounded. Okay. 100% sure, 100% sure that this is grounded yet? No, this is. So go ahead and work on the grounded phase first.
Next, he uses a third grounding set to connect the first phase to the center phase.
Okay, next step in the process right here. We got the outside phase taken care of here. Next one in the process, 10. Install ground from outside, got dyslexia there, outside phase to center phase. All right, just as a guess here and see how far, I mean, you guys are thinking of the step process that's going on here. Where do you think he's going to go from now? He went from neutral to outside phase. He went from outside phase to center phase.
Going to the next phase.
The inside phase.
Inside phase. Which one's the inside?
Primary. He's gonna go to the primary.
They're all primaries.
The center to the right.
He's going to go to that right phase.
So you're saying he's going to go from center to right?
Yes.
Correct.
And finally, he completes the last link by connecting the center phase to the other outside phase.
Okay, so last part of the link here, 11. Connect center phase to, and he called it the other outside phase. We call it the far phase. This is the furthest away from us, to far phase. Okay, before I start the video back, and you'll see the difference here. When he initially installed the ground cluster, how far away from it was it from the neutral? What did we say?
2 feet.
About 2 feet. He's readjusted this, and you can tell 2 feet would probably put it right around where his kneecaps are. He's readjusted it further down the pole, and I'll tell you the reason why. Whenever you're working in this zone, and this will be the zone of grounding, the cluster bar has to be below your feet. It's a requirement in the grounding process, which he has it well below the his feet right here. You have to be working in this zone. The reasons behind it are, if your feet are below the cluster bar, which is right here, and you're working with your hands above it, is there a difference in potential? We talked about potential before.
Yes.
There is a difference in potential. Although minute, it still exists. Okay, that's why you have to have your entire body above the ground cluster. So am I caught up in my notes? Connect, even though I can't spell. ECT, connect center phase to far phase.
Conductor. The 5 grounding sets, from the ground rod to the cluster bar to the neutral and all 3 phases, now join together in one grounded circuit. With the grounds applied at a pole one span from the worksite, we move to the pole one span away from the worksite in the other direction. He repeats the
Okay, so Professor V, and this was not a practice at Santee Cooper. We used what they called single point grounding.
Right.
He's getting ready to install another set of grounds and what they call dual point grounding. What did you do?
We did that. We actually did the closed grounding like that.
So you're able to work inside a zone between the two sets of grounds.
That's correct. That most of the time that was the practice until we started they would allow us at some point to do single point grounding.
Okay, so essentially, gentlemen, what we're talking about here, different companies are going to have different work practices. Our practice was that if you had to climb a pole or if you worked in a bucket truck on a pole and you were doing the grounding process, you had to have what they call single point grounding. Every location on a pole that you were working needed to have a ground set. Dual point grounding, and we'll get here to the video in just a moment, is if I put a set of grounds on one end of my conductor and I have a zone area, and we saw this in the paint. If I put a set of grounds at this end, this first open point on this conductor, and then I put a set of grounds at this point on this end of the part of the line where I have this open switch, anybody can work inside the zone and all of these poles would not need to be grounded. Santee Cooper's rule is every time you went to each individual structure, you had to have a set of grounds. That's single point grounding. Everybody understand that? I'll take that as maybe. Okay, on with the video.
procedure in the same order here. Again, it's from ground rod to cluster bar to neutral to the 3 phases. This establishes what's known as dual point grounding. For the worksite, the pole in the middle. Grounding at the worksite begins with a cluster bar. The temporary ground he's installing here at the center pole, the actual worksite, is known as a personal ground. It begins with the pole, which must be considered conductive itself and connects from the cluster bar to one of the phase conductors. The personal ground forms a fault circuit path from the phase down the pole and thereby creates a zone of equalized potential above the cluster bar.
So there are tons of debates out here, and this has a lot to do with not only the conductor that he's going to be working with, but whatever's adjoining him. Remember that video we saw where we had that induced voltage from the transmission line?
Yeah.
All right. And we've already got the information from Professor V. They did dual point grounding. If I'm in the zone and I'm by that transmission line, can I also get induced voltage on this line where he's working at now?
Yeah.
All right, you can. He's only, how many conductors is he grounding? One. How many do you need to ground?
3.
3, okay. He's not going to the neutral with it here. So I think, you know, in my mind, in our safety department, that's why we were instructed to go to every structure and do the 3-point grounding like you saw in the beginning, or the 4-point actually, or 5-point. Ground rod, neutral, and all 3 phases. So you had insurance there that if you had induced voltage on the line, you were working inside the zone at a grounded point. Does that make sense to everybody? Say yeah.
See?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Yes.
Now he's protected to perform the maintenance this service call required.
He's in our book. He's allowed to do maintenance on 1 phase, not all 3.
Right.
Protected by a personal ground here, plus dual point grounds at the 2 adjacent poles. On a system with a neutral too small to carry available fault current, connect 1 lead from the cluster bar to the neutral and another lead from the cluster bar to the first phase. This alternate setup takes no more leads than the first way shown, with a lead from the cluster bar to the neutral and another from the cluster bar to the phases. Another way to establish an equal potential zone employs single point grounding at the worksite only. Connect one lead from the cluster bar to the neutral.
So what's he saying here when he says if the neutral is unable to carry the fault current? What does he mean by that? Any guesses? Do you think the jumpers themselves have a rating as far as the amount of current that can flow through them?
Yes.
Yes, they do. All right. Remember, we're coming here with a cluster bar, then we're taking a jumper to the neutral. Then off the neutral, we're taking another jumper up to the phase. In some cases, the neutral conductor will not be able to carry the amount of fault current that the cable does. So they have a different method here.
And another lead from the cluster bar to the first phase. This alternate setup takes no more leads than the first way shown, with a lead from the cluster bar to the neutral and another from the cluster bar to the phases. Another way to establish an equal potential zone employs single point grounding at the worksite only, with leads from a screw ground rod to a cluster bar, the neutral, and all three phases. Of course, the very same methods can be applied just as well from an insulated bucket truck. Whether the work is done from the pole or out of an insulated bucket truck, the same dual point or single point method must be used to provide an equal potential zone of protection for the lineman. Whatever your work practices, either the dual point or the single point method establishes an effective personal protective zone for de-energized construction or maintenance work, an equal potential zone with proper temporary grounding. Be sure you are in the equal potential zone.
Okay, that pretty much wraps it up as far as the installation of them. A couple notes here and a couple questions for you guys. I've got an open point on the left-hand side and I've got an open point on the right-hand side. All right, that's all I have so far. Can I work in this zone area and not have to use rubber goods or rubber gloves?
No.
You cannot. It is not allowed. Right? I can have the two open switches, but I still have to use all of the safety practices as far as cover up and rubber goods as I would if I went on to an energized line. All right. I've got the open switch and I've tested the line. No voltage. Do I still have to use rubber goods, rubber gloves?
Yes.
Yes. All right. Only after you have confirmed two open points and tested and grounded can I begin to work without any rubber goods. Is that the same policy as yours, Professor V?
Yes.
All right. The simple term, and you'll see this plenty in your service centers. It's not grounded and it's not dead until it is grounded. We've got plenty of those notes up there and plenty of posters saying that. Okay. Any questions thus far before we take a break?
Yeah, I got a question.
Yes, sir.
So working on primaries, you got to wear the rubber gloves, right? What about working on like feeder lines, like the lines that go directly to the houses?
The secondary lines?
Yeah.
Yeah, any voltage.
Okay. Okay.
Right. And you ask a good one here. I'll throw it up in the notepad. That's why Professor V way earlier, I think it was in 110, he put secondary voltages. Sorry about that. The secondary volt range. Wow, can't spell. OLT range. Does anybody remember what it was? 0 to what?
240.
600. Okay. What's the primary volt range?
7,200 or 12,470.
Range. The whole scope of all primaries. $600 to 34,500. Okay. And what's the transmission volt range?
34,500 2.
Transmission volt range. You're right on the first one. 34,500 to what?
The 765.
Yeah, 765 kV. All right, that's in the United States. Like I said, foreign countries are up to 1.2 MV, 1.2 million volts. Rubber gloves must be worn at the primary and secondary volt range. Are rubber gloves required from 34,500 to 765 kV?
I feel like they'd be more required to wear bigger protection.
The question, are rubber gloves used from 34,500 to 765 kV?
I'm gonna probably go with no.
Good answer. Okay, good answer right there. There is no rubber glove that's going to be usable to be able to handle these voltages. You're going to have to go to complete stick work. All right, you're not going to be able to put hands-on conductor when you start getting these voltage ranges. Thus, you're not going to need rubber gloves to put over your hands. You are going to have leather gloves and what they call a technique they call barehanding. But in barehanding, you have to use sticks. Okay. Answer your question there, Scott?
Yeah, you answered the question.
Good deal. Good deal. All right, guys, let's take about, let's see. Wow, time's flying. It's 10:22. Let's be back about 10:35. All right. All right, so we're back on, still got the share screen there, Professor Vic?
Yes.
Okay, can you get him?
Got it.
Thank you very much. All right, gentlemen, so for the quiz today, you've got the steps to install. And you're also going to include on that list the steps to remove. So you remove in reverse order. And when I say reverse order, it's just not disconnect center phase to far phase. You've got to come off in the process. I'll show you this picture right here. To where every time that you handle the jumper that you're removing, it's grounded. Now, if I was to remove the center phase here to the far phase first, take this jumper off first, would it be grounded?
No.
No.
No, it's not. So you have to actually flip the process as far as the disconnect is. If I take this jumper off first on the far phase and then take it off the center phase, that jumper remains grounded. So I still have a grounded object on my stick. Just in case I lose control of this end, or it comes off the end of the stick and it swings around and makes contact with me, it is still grounded. So that's why we do the reverse process in a certain manner. So simply put, we're going to start at 11. We're going to disconnect. This is where your word is going to come into play. The far phase to the center phase. We're not going to disconnect the center phase to the far phase. All right. On the next step, install ground from outside phase to center phase. We're going to disconnect from where?
Center phase to outside.
Center phase to outside. So we still have a grounded item on our stick. Then we're going to disconnect the ground lead from the neutral and place it on the outside phase, or are we going to flip that?
Outside phase first.
Neutral, right. Install neutral ground to cluster and neutral lead to neutral wire. So we're going from the go from the neutral wire and disconnect from what?
To the cluster.
The
Ground
neutral.
cluster.
Yeah, here you go. That's because we got an and here. We disconnect the neutral lead wire from the neutral, and then we disconnect it from what? The cluster. There you go. Perfect. All right. Then we disconnect from the cluster to the ground cable. Then we take down our cluster mount. All right, do we need to clean conductors?
No.
Nope. Do we need to test the line for voltage?
No.
Nope. Okay. Do we need to attach the ground lead to the ground rod?
Disconnect it.
Disconnect it. Perfect. That's the only one we'll have to do. So these two don't even count. You don't need them anymore. Disconnect from the ground rod. Do we need to install a temporary ground rod 50 feet from the ground?
Need to dig it up.
Nope, nope. Remove temporary ground from the ground rod 15 feet from the pole. Do we need to confirm 2 open points?
No.
No, we're getting ready to re-energize the line. So that's the reverse process. Once again, like I said, this will be on video, so you can refer to it as far as the quiz is concerned. Any question there on the points of grounding? Single point grounding. Okay. All right, Mr. Gaggum. Tariq?
Here.
Okay, we're gonna go over the resume.
Okay.
And the first question I have for you here, I can't move this thing. Here it goes. Do you have this in a Word document or anything that you can edit?
Yeah, I can edit on Google Docs.
You can edit a PDF on Google Docs?
I sent it to you from Google Docs.
It's a PDF. I can't do any editing to it.
Okay.
Okay. So, I mean, that's not bad. As long as you can edit, that's fine. All right. Just for the rest of you to let you know, if you save it as a document or a docx, .docx, that we can edit in real time. So if any of you save that in that format and you come on and say, can you take a look, or do I need to do this, that, or the other, we can actually look at it, make changes in real time, and it's automatically saved. So we're going to look at Tariq's name, address, phone number going on here, and his email address. Summary: currently enrolled at Horry Georgetown Technical College in the electrical line worker program. I'm looking for an entry-level apprenticeship. I would probably change this because some companies do not have apprenticeships.
Okay.
Entry-level line worker position.
Okay.
In the electrical line worker industry. Now I'll just ask you, and because you're being specific here, would you want to open this up, and not to say that you can't make changes to a future, make changes and have different kind of resumes, different types. Do you want to open this up to be where any utility, or are you specifically wanting to go into the electrical line worker industry? When I say that, would you be interested in telephone, TV cable, tower climbing, anything like that? Or this is what you're driving for?
Well, anything really for basically what we're learning is what I would like to, work in.
Okay. Well, they do hire, all of those utilities do hire from our class. If you want to be specific, say you're putting in an application at Santee Cooper, obviously it's an electrical line worker company, I would leave it like this. But if you say, hey, I'm going to put one in for Horry Telephone, just change this to the communications
Okay.
industry.
Well, I put that in my, I put that down there at the bottom.
Okay.
It says overhead underground transmission and communications.
Okay, that's fine. Then I would change that to utility industry.
Okay.
Okay. The thing is, I mean, and it's not a hard change. Customize it for what you're applying for is where I'm going.
Okay.
Okay. I am willing to relocate at my own expense and open to any and all areas of work. Let's see, that opens it up right there. Overhead, underground transmission, and communications. I always keep safety first. Skills: great team working skills, hardworking, working safely, great communication skills, willing to go above and beyond. Sufficient.
Efficient.
I would go proficient.
Proficient. Okay.
Yep. Proficient in pole climbing. And if you want to, leave that alone right now. Experience 2020 current. All right, guys, and this is something to remember out here in the world. Go from the most current. I've seen some out here that go to the earliest, excuse me, the latest to the earliest. You want to go from the most current and then back in history, which he has done here. All right, 2020 Elite Professional Pressure Washing LLC, owner operator, pressure wash houses, sidewalks, patios, trucks, buildings, etc. Good usage of ladders. Great arm strength and to hold. There you go, hold. Okay, hold the gun. Hold pressure washer. I would just say gun. Pressure washer all day. Customer satisfaction and always safe. Couple things I read in here just to let you know. Obviously, you want to add a couple words about it. What kind of weather do you work in?
Cold, hot.
There you go. I'd include it.
Okay.
Yeah, accustomed to working in cold and hot temperatures outside.
Well, I don't have it in that one, but I got it down in the Omni electrical.
That include them both.
Okay.
Okay. 218 to current. So you're working 2 jobs.
Yes, sir.
Excellent. 810 billiards and bowling. Manager, bartender, communicating with customers, making sure all electronics are working correctly in the building. What kind of electronics?
We have like this, basically like an iPad that controls every TV and every monitor in the building.
Okay.
And sometimes they go out, so I have to go in there and figure out what's wrong with it.
Include that. Include like security and entertainment.
Okay.
Electronics. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Keeping people safe, cooking, counting, what?
Money.
Counting what?
Money.
Money. Okay. Let's see. Counting finances.
Finances. Okay.
Okay. Training new employees and motivating coworkers. Good. 2014, 2015, Omni Electrical, 79 Pocono Street, Conway. I was an electrician. Apprentice, wired whole houses, pulled wire. Okay, when you say pulled wire, what did you do in that process?
We basically just pulled the wires where they needed to go in the house. I mean,
Through the house.
through the house, yeah.
Did you ever pull wire and conduit?
No.
Okay. Worked in extremely cold and hot environments, climbed ladders to do overhead work. Excellent. I love this part. Dug post holes for meters. Let's go ahead and put dug holes with post hole diggers for meters. All right. Residential and commercial, worked hard and safely. Education, same process here, guys. Everyone, earliest to the latest. January 11th, 2021 to current, or Georgetown Technical College. You list out the programs, which throw a lot of keywords in there. Electrical computation, introduction to electrical line worker, electricity, overhead line construction, underground line construction, electrical power systems. Also currently in the process of getting my CDLA permit. Okay. And then references. Who's Johnny Grissett?
That's my grandpa.
Did he own a business? You work with him?
No, he retired from Santee Cooper.
Okay, so Professor V.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Grissett. Professor V.
Yo.
What's your take on using either current or previous employees with the organization that you're trying to apply for?
I don't think I'd use a current.
Okay. Yeah, I'm in the same boat here. I probably would not use a current. And to be honest with you, I don't think myself, and this is my opinion, I wouldn't use a previous employee of the company. It's kind of like, and don't take this wrong. I know Johnny Tariq, and I know him pretty well. Good man. It kind of gives the impression that if you were to walk into an interview with this, or us to read this during the interview, that you're trying to rely on somebody else and not yourself.
Right. Well, I didn't put in an application to Santee Cooper, so.
I'm just saying if you do.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Just watch out for that. Who's Andal?
That's my uncle, cousin.
What does he do?
He's a lineman.
For?
Santee Cooper.
Okay. So neither of these are going, you're not going to apply for the organization. You're not going to apply for Santee Cooper at all ever.
With those. Okay.
Hmm?
I haven't applied. I haven't sent my resume. I haven't applied for Santee Cooper with either.
Okay. Just watch out. If you do, just be aware of what we're talking about. Okay.
Okay.
All right. And of course, myself and Professor Vermelin, fantastic. It's always good to use somebody outside of the organization that the organization doesn't know.
Okay.
Right. And obviously they know me pretty well. And I would highly suspect that if they wanted to call Robbie, they're going to get the real deal from Robbie, and they're going to get the real deal from me. But if you find somebody out there, say, well, how about your previous employers here? What do you think of your self-owned here, right?
Yes, sir.
Do you work for a manager for the 810 billiards?
Yes, sir. General manager.
Yeah. Would you think he would be a good reference?
Of course, she would.
Yeah, I would probably add him.
Okay.
He's the most recent. To be honest with you, I would probably add Omni Electrical too. If you had a guy that worked with them also, if you can use him as a good, reliable source.
Yeah, I think he's a supervisor now. So
excellent. So yeah, I would go those two.
okay.
Right. And the thing is here, Grissett and Andal, especially, and this is what companies are trying to get away from. You don't want to refer a relative. Right. I know it still exists out there, and let everybody know. There's the good old boy system. They're trying to get rid of it, but it still does exist out there, guys. So it gives the impression that, well, I'm going to try to take a little bit of advantage of the good old boy system. Andal's a lineman. He's a Johnson too. I'm going to use him. Well, they kind of like to steer away from that. Is that the case with you, Professor V?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Overall, Tariq, couple tweaks here. This looks very good.
Very good.
Okay.
Sure.
Any questions from anybody else here? All right. Big key items.
I had a question.
Yes, sir.
How many references can you use?
You can use as many as you want to. Put them in the order that you want them called. Make sense?
Yeah.
So if you want me to get called for it, I called references. I may have had about 10 different resumes come into me. And if typically I didn't call back. But if I had a couple employees, 2 or 3, maybe even 4, I want to get a little bit more information on this guy because this guy compares close to the other guy. I would call them up, and obviously I'd call 1 or 2, and once I've got the same information from 2, I'm probably going to get the same information from the other ones because you're the one that put the name in there. Okay. Yeah. But if Scott Shoemaker, if you want to rely on Johnny Grissett and Andal Johnson to be your premier references, put them up top. If you want Scott Shoemaker and Robbie Vermelin to be your premier references, put them at top and move them down.
Okay.
Okay. Good question. Anybody else?
Yeah, I got a question for you.
Yes, sir.
How about like jobs if you've done for a while, but they're not like for businesses and stuff? You know what I mean?
Great question right there. So you're working personally for somebody.
Yeah.
And it's money. Hold on. Contact the so you want to use them as a reference. contact the person that you're going to and ask them first, can I use you as a reference? That's all. All right. And that's fine by me. All right. Can anybody else give me any other input here as far as this resume is concerned? What are we looking for in a resume? Key words. Remember, most of these get scanned first before they go to an actual person. Horry Georgetown Technical College, electrical line worker, apprenticeship, which we're going to change to entry level, electrical line worker, willing to relocate, overhead, underground, transmission, communications, safety. Yeah, that's a big one to put in. Big one to put in there. Teamwork, work safely, communication skills. You know, you're touching on all of these skills that a computer is going to say, yep, I like what I see in here. I'm going to push this on to the supervisor for him to read. 2 is, we're not here to look at, when we look at a resume, a bunch of nice little flowers up here and all this colorful stuff on the side and you know, all these different fonts and everything like that. We're probably going to get 30 or 40 of these to read. We want the facts and we want it nice, clean, and done on one sheet of paper. So don't add all that glitz to it. You just don't need it. Lay it out, especially in order. Most recent to latest. And he did that in everything. Okay? Remember, we got to be speedy too when we're reading it. Plus, you got to get the information across quick. Any other questions? Good job, Sheree.
Oh yeah, I got a question.
Yes, sir.
So if I was working for like a company under the table, could I put that for experience?
We just answered that.
I thought you were talking about for a reference.
Well, use the same thing.
So all right.
Contact the owner of the business and ask them if they're okay with it. Okay. All right. Remember, guys, this is a grade. Once he gets to those little bits and pieces taken care of and resubmits to me, this is a substitute grade, so it takes place of any lowest grade in all the courses. Professor V, you have anything else to add?
No, sir, I don't, not at this time.
Okay. Let's see, what's the rest of the week? So Tuesday, tomorrow, we're going to hope for another day like we got today. It is beautiful outside.
Yes.
Then we're going to get back into some more of the overhead line construction part. Wednesday, we'll be back in Zoom. Thursday, and we'll go over this Wednesday as far as what we're going to be doing on Thursday. We will be at the college in the morning at 9 a.m. and we're going to take you through the load trainers. So let me show you that real quick. And the load trainer, let's see. Here we go. Maybe.
Most linemen want to put their hands on something and actually do the physical work. Worst thing in the world you can do to a lineman is put him in a classroom all day and tell him he's going to sit there and listen.
This week this is the Municipal Transformer School. The guys come in, we've got students from all across North Carolina.
Installing wire, primary wire, secondary wire, and all of that takes time to learn. Classes like this help give that knowledge to the guys on transformers, how they work, how they operate.
So with the Load Trainer 2 transformer simulator, you can see the phase-to-phase voltage plus the phase-to-neutral voltage. You can see all 6 voltages at one time. That was a great feedback from our customer visits, was the ability to see all 6.
They get to plug in and they get to play with the voltage, and you know, it brings everything together for them.
Play with it in there instead of real life situation, get it down right.
With the new unit, the new load trainer, it's all in one board, and it's just so much, you know, more user friendly.
One thing I liked about it too was when you tried something on the real field, you know, you do it, you know you went wrong, but you didn't really see what went wrong. On that training board, when you plug it in, you know, it shows you, hey, this transformer overloaded when you're done that, you know, so forth and so forth. I hear you can't see that, you just know it went bad.
So when we were designing the interface for our touchscreen system, we wanted to make it as similar as possible to any textbook examples. We designed it so that the primary and secondary lines are very similar to any textbook drawings of configurations you might have to wire. Makes it a lot easier for instructors to use current examples that they might have.
The fact that they can actually put their hands on it and actually put wire to wire, and you know, it can be inside versus if it's raining outside or whatever. That's hard to do. If you travel at different places, I can take that inside and actually do, you know, it's actually some of the hands-on inside where a lot of times we can't get outside to the transformers.
The unit actually will tell you if the tank is grounded or not. You can talk about polarity. This unit allows you to do both additive and subtractive polarity.
The built-in dock viewer with the manuals and built-in examples, while connected to an HDMI, say projector or TV, can also really help in the classroom in the instructing process.
Since we started using Load Trainer, it's expedited the learning, I believe. You know, it's like they got it quicker. It's like the light bulb comes on in their head. It's like, oh, okay, we get it now. So.
Okay, so just to let you know, guys, Thursday, we're going to be in the conference room that's in Building 300, and we'll show you that location when we go out to the field tomorrow. And we're going to, Professor Brumlin and I actually have 2 of the load trainers here. And we're going to take you through the process of the load trainer and how they work. These are kind of cool. Professor B, how much were they a piece?
About $7,000 a piece.
Yeah, $7,000 a piece. So we're going to take you guys through wiring of the 3-phase banks that we did, and you actually get to see output voltages in the wiring process and rotations. Now, it's not going to shock you or anything like that. It's made to, you know, safely for you, but you're going to see actual output voltages and anything that you do wrong as far as the wiring process in a simulated environment. This is the first time that we're going to be using them.
Yep.
And this is the first class that's going to have this type of simulator. We had an old one, which was kind of cumbersome, but that's what we're going to do Thursday morning once everybody has done a run through of working with the simulators right here. And would they have any questions or problems or whatnot? Our process here is, and I'm not quite 100% decided on this yet, either work as a pair or individually. Once you have made all 3 banks in the wiring process and it comes up on the screen with your result, you'll be completed with it and how you're able to change rotation in this also. So in order to do that, we're going to have these set up in room 110, building 300 on both ends of that. It's a huge room, so all of us can fit in there. Masks are going to be required for that day, okay, gentlemen, to be able to go into the college. Any questions left from today? Professor B, anything else you'd like to add before we close?
Quiz this afternoon.
Quiz this afternoon. We'll post the video and give you an announcement of when that quiz is available. I would highly recommend, guys, you know, that video's got all the steps in it. So it does take some time to convert, but you got until midnight tonight